Once upon a time,
in a land far away.
I'm Katrina.
And I'm Geoff.
This is the Fairy Tellers Podcast.
Myth, legend, folklore, fable.
We explore what they say about cultures then and now,
Grab a hot cup of cocoa and a comfy seat,
while we tell you a tale.
Welcome back to the podcast.
And thank you for your patience.
Thank you for your patience. And as you probably have guessed what I'm going to say, it is another exciting episode. And I mean it especially this time because we're going to be doing something for Mer-MAY.
Yes.
If you've been a longtime listener of the podcast, you know that we have oft experienced the curse of Mer-MAY, where we talk a big game about what we're going to do to celebrate and then just don't. I'm nervous to say it even right now because while it is still the month of May, it's later in the month of May than we wanted it to be when we were recording this episode. So I'm like, is it going to happen? It may be a belated Mer-MAY, but it is going to happen.
Yeah.
So happy Mer-MAY in June or July, if that is the month that it happens to be when you were listening to this and when we put it out. But in spirit, we are in Mer-MAY.
Yes. And I'm hoping that because May this year has 5 Saturdays that we're going to be like technically under the wire, we did it. Like we can celebrate. And again, we're saying this so hesitantly because we're recording. It's not out yet. So we can't quite see into the future.
Yeah.
And so we don't know. We don't have that prognostication abilities to like see that far into the future, 1 week into the future. Yeah. Who knows?
Who knows?
But yeah, we almost fell to, and maybe we already have. Who knows? We'll see. You'll tell us when you listen to this episode. But we almost fell to the curse of Mer-MAY because I feel like what's more cursed about May is the fact that I was seeing these different memes that were saying that May is the December of the middle of the year, where you have like all of this stuff that has to get like planned and done and all these like activities. And so it's like people going in and out of town or working. And like, if you work with a school district in college level or like elementary school, high school, whatever, like there's different graduation programs. There's different end of the year events that are going on. All of this like different stuff that then makes scheduling a nightmare. I mean, even if you have like family that you're like traveling to any of that stuff, or people are moving or planning on like moving and stuff. So yeah, May got predictably hectic. And so when I finally kind of came to like a week ago and I hadn't talked to Geoff for like 2 weeks, I was like, oh, hey, so podcast Mer-MAY. And yeah, because I'm like, you had family in and out of town.
I did, yeah. And like you said, like the work got really busy. It's like May is always a busy month.
You and I both have like May birthdays also in our families. And so we have to like celebrate those. And that takes up weekends, especially, because that's usually when you have time to celebrate them. So yeah, things got crazy. We almost fell to the curse of Mer-MAY, but we felt committed to do it. So what we've decided to do for Mer-MAY is go back to kind of like the concept that we introduced at the beginning of the year, where it's like, hey, some of our episodes are going to be mostly fun stories. And that's what we wanted to do with Mer-MAY. We're just going to tell fun mermaid stories. I was thinking of doing like, a history lesson on like how our concept of like mermaids like came to be. I don't know, maybe someday. It just seemed less interesting. It seemed more fun, actually, to tell stories that are just lighthearted, fun stories.
Yeah, and I'll say the story that I'm going to be retelling, I'm super stoked about because it is really fun. And I only got a brief visual image teaser of what Katrina's story is going to be. And just that one, like, illustration alone has gotten me really excited to hear whatever this story happens to be, because any story that goes with the illustration that I saw is going to be a good one.
Yeah, no, and I'll be honest with you, when I was like flipping through this book of Mermaid Tails, that image is what got me to stop and be like, what's going on with this? But that's actually going to be the second tale that I tell. So we're gonna do a classic I tell a tale, Geoff tells a tale, tales. We're going to do a classic. I tell a tale, then Geoff is going to tell a tale. Nope, can't do it. It's too hard. And then I'm going to finish by retelling a story.
Good adjustment.
Yeah. I was like, what can my mouth do? Let's do that. So the first story that I'm going to be telling everybody is a story that is from Iceland. And it is called The Lost Prince.
Ooh.
And I wanted to have like a good mix of like kind of good and evil merfolk in the retelling of like these tales, because these stories, it's like they can kind of go either way, where there's really, really great, kind, gentle merfolk, and then other ones that are like, no, I'm out to get you. And so hopefully you'll notice like a good mix in these. So straight from Iceland, The Lost Prince. So there was a prince, and he went out to hunt with his fellow court people, and a mist blew from the sea, and everybody, kind of disappeared in the fog. And then the prince was lost, from
what?
from the title.
No.
We couldn't have seen this coming.
How could it have happened?
So obviously, they're searching for him. They're like, oh man, what happened? What happened? This is horrible. And so everybody, they go back to the palace and tell the king, like, your son, he's gone missing. And of course, the king, grief stricken, he like goes to his bed and he's, sobbing and so grief stricken, like now he's like ill and dying. And so he makes this proclamation that anyone who can find the prince will get half of his kingdom. Dead or alive, if anybody even has news of where he might have ended up, they'll get half of his kingdom. So obviously, the news spreads out around the kingdom. Has anyone seen this prince? You'll get this reward. This is what the king is saying. But no one's finding him. Like, it's not happening. And then out in a far away corner of the kingdom, far, far away from the epicenter of all this like happening, there is a pretty girl who lives out in this hovel on the edge of the kingdom with her parents. They're very, very poor. They just do not have anything. So the girl hears this proclamation. She kind of thinks to herself, like, oh my gosh, if I were to find the prince, I wouldn't even need half of the kingdom. Like I wouldn't even want that. That's like way too much. I don't even think I'd want a quarter of it or an eighth or a 16th. Like, I would just like to have
a 32nd.
Yes. She's like, I just want 1/32 of the kingdom. She's like, I would just ask for just a little farm that my mom and dad could live comfortably in and like be at peace.
Aww.
And so she told her parents her plan and asked for their blessing to go so that she'd be able to hopefully do this. And her parents, of course, they didn't want her to go because they're like, we love you. We don't want anything bad to happen to you. Like, we'd rather like have nothing, live in this like hovel and still have our daughter and know where you are, than like you go out into the wide world and like us risk you. And she, begged and begged her parents, like, please, I don't want to have to leave like without your blessing. I want you to, if we're going to part, I want to part like on good terms. And so finally her parents like gave her their blessing to leave. They gave her all the food that they could spare so that she would have something like to go off on this journey. And they said goodbye to her. I love in the story, it's like the places that girl went to, you wouldn't believe. It's like she was going up frozen mountains. I'm like, this girl's hiking in the Himalayas. She's going like all over the place, thorny valleys, through the wilderness, through jungle. She's going I'm like, clearly not in the kingdom anymore. Like she's really going like far and away, like out of place. It says she walked the shoes off of her feet, which I love that as an image, especially like stories from like Iceland. They're connected to like Norse stories, and we've heard about, like iron shoes and people like walking, like East and Sun, West of the Moon, walking their shoes off their feet, like on this journey. So similar motif right there. And so it's like her clothes, she'd been going for so long, her clothes were turning into rags. They were already rags. And it said that she would pin the rags together with thorns from the hedges and walk on. So I'm like, dang, this girl's like into it, going hard, because she's like, I need to find this prince. But did she? No. And at last, there was no place left on land for her to search. And so she went and sat by the sea. And so she's kind of talking to herself. She's just like, well, the prince has to be dead. Like, he's obviously nowhere on land, so he must be underground, dead and buried. And there's no point in keep like going on. I should just probably go home. And then she hears someone out in the water laughing. And she's like, what? Where is that like coming from? So she's like scanning the horizon, looking around, and she looks over and she sees that there is a whale out in the water laughing at her, which I'm like, that would be quite a sight to see. Whales just mocking your pain. I'm imagining all those orcas that were like attacking all the yachts. Just kidding. Orcas aren't whales. They're porpoises, right?
I think so, but they're called killer whales. So.
Yeah, so we're going to count it. No.
Yeah.
This is an aquatic mammals podcast. Just kidding. It's not. We have no facts for you. So, she looks up, there's this whale head sticking up out of like the sea, and he's laughing and grinning at her. And she's like, I don't think you should be laughing at me. That's pretty rude. I'm really exhausted. I'm disappointed. I can't find what I'm looking for. Like, how is any of that funny to you? And the whale was like, well, no, because it's funny because you've been looking in every single wrong place. It's like, well, obviously she was looking in every single wrong place because that's not where he was, or she would have like found him. So again, your joke, not super funny. And she's like, I've looked everywhere. So how could I have been looking in all the wrong places? Because I've literally looked everywhere. And he's like, no, you haven't, because I know where the right place is. And she's like, oh yeah, cool. Then where? And then he asks, are you a good swimmer?
Love it.
So cocky for a whale. She was like, no. And he's like, all right, fine. Get on my back. I'll take you. And this girl, no hesitation on her, just jumps on this whale's back, and he takes her like out to sea, which I'm like, dude, you're not even going to hesitate for a second and be like, oh, but no, she was in it to win it. So she was all in. So she gets on the whale's back and he swims out to sea, and they're going all day and then all night going out. And at last he came to a little island that had a cave in it. And he's like, all right, this is the right place. Get off me. Go into the cave. So the girl's like, okay, might as well. Which I'm like, he was your ride out there. I'd be so stressed about like, what's the plan getting back? Like, now you've just been stranded like on an island. It's fine. This is a fairy tale. It's okay. So girl gets off the whale's back. Whale swims away. She goes into the cave. So the cave was long and dark, but she could see something was glittering in the back. And so she just tried to like grope her way through this dark tunnel toward the thing that was like glittering in the back. And when she got back there, she found 2 beds. One bed was covered with cloth of silver and the other one cloth of gold. Again, I'm like, love these motif little items that silver and gold, the colors of fairy tales. And when she looked on the gold bed, she saw fast asleep the prince that she'd been looking for. And on the headboard of each of these beds, there were carved some magic words, and the girl couldn't read them. Because I'm like, how would she be able to read them? One, I don't know. It doesn't say that they were in like a different language, but also she was living in a hovel on the edge of a kingdom. Like, I doubt that she had like a good education. No offense to her and this kingdom's like literacy programs, but so she couldn't read them. And so she didn't waste too much time with them. She just tried to like rush over to the prince. And so she was calling him, she was shaking him, she was pinching him, she was doing everything she could to try to like get him to wake up, but he wouldn't wake up. And I thought this was funny because then it was like, then she tried kissing him, for she remembered that there was a charm in a maiden's kiss. Not a bit of good. There was no charm in her kiss.
Man, hate being kissed by those charmless women.
Whew, I don't think I'd mind. No, just kidding.
You're right. I can't complain. I get what I get and I don't throw a fit. You know what I mean?
You've never been kissed by a charmless woman. Just kidding.
That's true.
Oh.
I know that's true. I would vouch for that.
Okay. Good. I don't know. Like I said that like so confidently. And then I like suddenly was like, I don't think I've met all the women that you've kissed. And so like that, I don't know for sure. But you know what? I like that you stand by the women that you've kissed, that you're like, nope, I liked and appreciated them when they happened.
It's really easy to do. You want some lore, listeners? Probably like too personal of lore. But I can count the number of women that I've kissed, not in like acting and in a play.
Okay, that's fair.
On one hand. Like I don't even need the full hand to do it either. And all of them, these fewer than 5 women, very charming, full of charm.
I love that for you.
Yeah.
So I think that it's really interesting that little part of like her being like, I think kisses work.
She's like, I've heard all of these other fairy tales that I wasn't a part of. And now that I'm living one, let me try all the things that I've seen done.
So it almost feels like something that got inserted by a storyteller who knew this story, knew how in more modern stories kisses were becoming a thing, because we haven't done like a whole deep dive on this, because I've been doing more research into like the Frog Prince, because a lot of people don't realize like the story of the Frog Prince ends with like the frog getting slammed against a wall. He doesn't get kissed. Like that's not the thing.
I want this girl in this story to be like, I know that they slam them against the wall. Let me try that. That would be better.
Would be hilarious. And so it almost seems like the storyteller themselves being aware of this kind of like new trope of true love's kiss, kind of like a situation, had thought when they were retelling this story that they've known, they get to this part of this person trying to wake up this guy and they're like, why didn't she think to kiss him? Because that's a fairy tale trope, isn't it? And so it's like almost like they inserted it in there, and so it's funny, the like, not a bit of good. There was no charm in her kiss. It seemed to wake anybody. I'm like, hilarious and needless shade thrown on this woman, because yeah, probably when this story was like being created further back, its pedigree wouldn't have thought to kiss like anybody. That's my personal thesis, like on that.
I love that. I believe that.
Nice. Because yeah, it did not, her kiss didn't do anything. So she was still trying to wake this guy up when she started to hear, it said, a spatter of foam at the opening of the cave. So like she was hearing like something rush up, kind of like a wave, and she could see the form of somebody coming. And so she was like, oh no, somebody's going to find me here. So she quickly ran and hid like in a dark corner of this like cave area behind a jutting rock. And in came a mermaid. And the mermaid was sparkling all over. She was covered in gold and silver scales, of course, because everything in her little cave hovel area seemed to be those colors. And she had long golden hair dripping with water that made pools on the cave floor. And it said she lit up the cave with her beauty. And then it's like, side note, but she didn't light up the corner behind the rock where the girl was hiding, obviously, or she would have been able to like see her. Story over. Yeah. Anyway, so the mermaid went up to the sleeping prince and she looked down at him, and up from like a shelf above the beds that the girl hadn't seen when she came in, because she didn't light up a room when she walked in. Her kisses, charmless. She does not light up a room. So the mermaid from a shelf took down some rare sea fruits and drinks in silver goblets, and she put them down at the foot of the prince's bed, and then she put her fingers in her mouth, not the prince's mouth. That'd be weird.
It's like, has anyone tried this to wake him
up? Anyway, so she puts her fingers in her mouth and she like lets out like a whistle. And so the girl
underwater?
No, because they're in this like cave area.
Oh, I just assumed that the cave was also still full of water.
Oh, so I'll paint a picture. So they're on this like island, and the island basically that the whale went up to had like a hole at the beginning of like a cave. And so it's basically kind of like a beachy type like tunnel where it's like at the end of that tunnel, the beds are basically like on sand at the end of this. Like,
cool.
I was imagining like kind of like lava tubes, but one that had gotten like, eroded enough that people could like fit 2 beds in there. But it's not underwater.
Gotcha. I was, the cultural impact of Disney's The Little Mermaid was working hard in my brain.
Yeah.
I was picturing
that makes
her
sense.
little, but I got it.
Her like grotto or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and we do have to pay attention to like what other media we've consumed before that like informs like how we are picturing, especially mermaids. Because I do want to point out that in like the description of the mermaid, they talked about her having scales, but they didn't talk about her having fins. They have not mentioned legs. That's one of the things that like trips people up when they are reading any stories about mermaids, kelpie, fin folk, sirens. Like we have in our brains like a current picture of like what a mermaid like would look like, but there are so many variations where it's like head of a man, porpoise body, or like, there's one in the 1001 Nights where they're saying that it's like tail up to the waist, but then the hands and feet of a human in the center, and then like torso and head of a person.
Wow.
Which
horrific.
Yeah.
But I love it.
Yeah, where it's like, wait. Like, what's happening? That's not what I have seen paintings of. That's not what I've seen statues of. And so, yeah, it is. And then so many stories, there's like a magic mechanism by which the person can be pulled underwater. And so it makes sense to think like, oh, she's riding on this whale's back and then somehow she can breathe underwater through some way or another. And he's traveling all day and all night with her underwater.
Yeah. It is interesting, too. I'm just realizing, too, why it's important that it be a whale or a porpoise.
Yeah.
A mammal.
Yeah. One that also kind of stays on the surface.
Yeah. And can breathe air. Needs to breathe air. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway. So yeah.
I've got a better picture of the location now.
Yeah. So especially you are, I'm glad that you said something because you are going to, need to know kind of like how the setup works because of who is about to come into the cave when she whistles.
She gave a little whistle.
So she put her fingers in her mouth. She whistled. And 2 giant swans flew into the cave. And then I'm imagining like
underwater. I'd have been real confused.
I'm imagining the sound of them kind of like coming in for that landing because I have it's not supposed to be like a pond in my backyard, but it's like, it's an area that just like, it kept pooling water and pooling water and pooling water. And so now there's no grass there. And so every time it rains, which is every like 3 or 4 days, it fills up with water and then all the ducks want to come and swim on it. And so I will hear them crash land in that like pool of like water. Yeah. I'm like, it's not that deep and it's not that long, but they haven't hurt themselves. So I guess they know what they're doing. So
yeah, we've got some ducks and Canada geese and some swans that live around where we are. And I will say from my observations that ducks are kind of the more graceful landers of those 3 that I have mentioned.
Yeah.
Swans, the least. It makes sense as they get bigger, the landings get less graceful.
Yeah. Well, especially I'm like trying to imagine like these big swans, like kind of like sailing and then skimming into this like pool. I'm like, swans are huge.
Yeah.
They are big birds. Anyway, so these 2 massive white swans
crash land inside.
And it said that, then they paddle swam to the foot of the bed. And the mermaid said, "Sing, sing, my swans, that the king's son may awake." And so the swan started singing. The prince rubbed his eyes and sat up. And she was like, "Eat." And she's like handing him like this food that she pulled off of like the shelf. And he's like, "No." She's like, "How long are you going to be stubborn? In the end, you will love me and you will marry me."
Wow.
And he's like, "No, I will never love you." Harsh.
Ouch.
So the mermaid was like, "Fine, be that way." And she turned to the swans and she said, "Sing, sing, my swans, that the king's son may sleep." And so the swans started singing again. The prince yawned and laid back down on the bed, fell asleep. So the mermaid ate the fruit and drank her drink, and then she laid down on the silver bed and fell asleep. The swans put their heads under their wings, and they also went to sleep. And so when everything was quiet, the girl crept out from the dark corner where she had been hiding, and she ate a little of the sea fruit and drank a bit of the drink, which I was hoping would then like make her fall madly in love with this mermaid, and then they would go off and have just like a like beautiful lesbian relationship.
I bet you did.
Because I was like, usually when you eat the food, like it binds you to like that place and that location.
For sure.
It works that way with elves. So I assumed it was the same. I assume that's why this lady was trying to get the king's son to like eat the food. Anyway, it's fine.
Or she doesn't want him to die. It's like, I heard you need to feed these things.
I guess that makes sense. That you can go ahead and starve.
Yeah. I mean, or both. It could be both.
It could be both.
It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive.
So anyway, so this girl, she ate the sea fruits, drank some of the drink, then she went and hid herself again, said, but she did not sleep. I bet, because she's probably would start snoring and wake everybody up. No, just kidding. So in the morning, Mermaid woke up, the swans woke up, but the prince kept sleeping. So Mermaid said to the swans, sing, sing, my swans, that the sun's king may awake. The swans sang, guy woke up, eat, no, today you shall love me and marry me. And the prince like, the world shall come to an end before I love you, which is like, oof, harsh. So the mermaid was like, fine, be that way, made the swans put him to sleep again. And then she left the cave and the swans followed her. So the girl came out of her dark corner and she looked down at the prince, like looked at how beautiful he was sleeping there. And so she put her fingers to her lips again, to her lips.
Okay.
She didn't stick her fingers in this man's mouth. I know you want it. Just kidding. So she whistles and the swans came back, which I was shocked by. Mm-hmm. But I guess like they're on the surface. The mermaid, I assume, went underwater to do underwater mermaid things. And the swans were like, we just hang out by the island. Anyway, so they come back in and she says, sing, sing, my swans, that the king's son may awake. The swans did it. The prince sat up, rubbed his eyes, and he was like, who are you? She's like, I'm just a poor girl who's come seeking you. And she told him about how much his father missed him, about the proclamation, and that she had been looking everywhere for him just so she could get this like little farm. And then she told him about the whale that had brought her to the cave. And then she was like, but how did you get here? And so he told her, we were out hunting. This mist came up and he was looking for everybody. He thought that, in the mist, he could hear the court people like calling to him. And so he started running in the direction of their voice. And then the earth just slipped away from under him. And he just like fell down, down, down into nothingness until he like fainted, passed out. And when he woke up, he was in this mermaid's arms. He was like, oh my gosh. And it was so annoying. She was like kissing me and flattering me. And she was like, oh, you should love me. You should marry me. And he's like, but no, I didn't want that. And so I told her like, no, and to like bring me back home. And she brought me to this cave and then put me on this golden bed, put me to sleep. And all I've known is sleep, wake, sleep, wake, sleep, wake. She wants me to eat this stuff. I don't know why, but I'm probably going to be doing this whole sleep, wake thing till doomsday, which was like hilarious.
I feel the same way.
I just sleep, wake
to tell you just sleep and don't wake no more. You know?
And that it do be like that. So the girl was like, you're not going to be here till doomsday. I'm here. I'm going to help you escape. Here's the food. Let's eat it together. Which again, I was like,
is this a trick?
Yeah, I'm like, I thought this fruit. Yeah, it's fine. So they ate the sea fruit. The prince looked at the girl and smiled, and he was like, you're very lovely. Oh, because the fruit was. I get it now.
It's magic.
It's magic.
It makes you fall in love with whoever is there when you eat it.
Man. I missed that on the first read. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie, people. Because I just thought that this guy was just like, I don't know, just randomly horny after being locked in this cave for who knows like how long. That he just like looked at her and he's like, you're pretty hot.
Did she know that it was going to happen? Or she was just trying to...
No, she seems as confused because like the next thing that it says is that after he said that to her, she kind of looked up at him and thought, you know what, he's pretty good looking too.
So it worked on her
Yeah,
too.
but then she, like her next thought after, oh yeah, he's pretty good looking too, was, oh, but no, I'm a poor girl. He's a prince. Like, it doesn't matter how hot he is because like, it's not going to happen, whatever. And then the prince kind of like changes the subject after being like, oh, you look hot. Anyway.
How about those swans though?
So I don't think that she knew because she had already eaten the fruit by herself, the fruit, and drank the drink. And so I think that she was like,
and she just felt like an increasing of self-love in that moment. Like, you know what? I'm pretty great.
I'm pretty great. I deserve a good life.
I deserve to make myself happy for the rest of my life.
Yeah. We should all eat sea fruit.
While looking in the mirror.
Yeah. Be like, you know what? You're pretty great. Anyway, because I'm like, I can see why when I like first like read through that, it wasn't this like clear indication of, because I just was like, I had a one-track mind. My brain was thinking like a Persephone bound to the underworld situation, not a dual love potion to like lock souls together. So anyway, so the prince is like, all right, change of subject. How are we going to escape from here? And she was like, okay, here's what we have to do. You need to pretend to just like agree with the mermaid to like eat the food, drink the drink like that she offers, whatever. And then when she starts talking about like, oh, I love you, I want to get married to her, like, don't say no to her. Just tell her like, let's wait until tomorrow evening. And then you should start like a conversation with her. I love that she's like giving this guy like relationship advice. Like, here's
I just read this in Teen Magazine.
Yeah.
This is how you should respond.
Here's how you need to like talk to like this woman. You need to ask her like, hey, so like, what do you do all day? Like,
show some interest in her and her hobbies.
Yeah. Like really sell it up that like you care about her and like what she's into. And then look over here at this like bed at the magic words that are on like the bed and ask her like, hey, have you ever wondered what this says and like means? And so the prince is like, I will do what you say because it seems to me that you're very wise, my little one. I'm like, ew, don't, I'm not into that. That's not my kink. I don't want to be infantilized by anybody, but okay, maybe she likes being called my little one. Also, she ate the fruits, whatever. Anyway, so the girl, I love it. She's like, okay, but first I have to put you back to sleep. So she whistled for the swans to come back in. They came in, sing, sing, my swans, that the king's son may sleep. He falls back asleep. Swans go away. She hides herself behind that rock in the corner. So in the evening, of course, the mermaid came dripping into the cave, called her swans, woke the prince. But then she looked at the table and she was like, someone's been eating in here. Someone has been drinking in here. And the prince, you know, having been like woken up, was like, well, it couldn't have been me eating and drinking in my sleep. But then he said, but I feel strangely happy and I'm willing to eat now. That, for me, that would have gotten me suspicious. But no, the mermaid was like, then the only person that it could have been who ate this were the swans. And she turns on them is like, how dare you? Like, I should kill you. Like, for your, like, impertinence. Like, you should, like, know better. And the swans, like, stretched out their necks and started hissing at her. Love that for them.
Oh man, I love that visual because I can so clearly see. I don't think I've ever seen a swan hiss at someone, but I've seen a goose.
Yeah, and like swans are
and
like
they were their tongue like kind of like sticks out, like almost like a snake. Like,
yeah,
love it.
And I love because then the mermaid's like, okay, I'll forgive you just this once, which I'm like, girl, you just didn't want to have to go hand to hand combat with like two swans, whatever. Yeah. So anyway, she decided, hey, the prince is actually willing to eat and drink right now, so I need to just like, you know, chill out, be good tempered, because like things are starting to go my way. So she's like, okay, whatever. Recalibrating. So she took down more food from the shelf and watched the prince like eat and drink. And she was like, so now will you love me and marry me? And he was like, yes, but let's wait till tomorrow because I'm tired. Which I'm like, tired? What do you mean tired? You've been sleeping this entire time. Anyway. So he's like, put me to sleep and let me sleep undisturbed until tomorrow evening. If you wake me then, I will marry you. But just out of curiosity, what do you do all day while I'm sleeping? And she was like, I mean, obviously, you know, I go over to like where men are. I rise up from the sea, I sit on a rock and I comb my hair and I sing, watch the comings and goings of human creatures. And when I see a beautiful youth that I like, I draw him down to me. But, which I'm like, girl, don't tell this.
You're trying to get this guy to marry you, and you're like talking about like I'm hitting up. She's like negging him, and like trying to make him jealous.
Yeah,
to
he's
be
like,
you know,
oh, what do you do all day? And she's like, I look for
now that he's finally
other
showing
men.
interest. Yeah,
she's like, I'm keeping my options open. Love that.
She's read Teen Magazine too.
Mm-hmm. But then she's like, but as much as I've been like looking, I've never found anyone as beautiful as you. So if
See, there you go.
Yeah. Like, oh yeah, you know, keeping my options open, but I mean, you're pretty good looking, so I mean,
It's got that push pull going, you know.
She knows what she's doing, like the tide coming in, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she was like, well, tomorrow night you'll be my husband, and so I don't need to go looking anymore for any men. So now go to sleep. And he's like, all right, cool. Just one more thing. Can you tell me the meaning of the words written on the head of the bed? And she's like, oh, it doesn't say much. It says, run, run, my little bed, run whither I will. And will the bed run if you tell it to? She's like, it will. But why should it, since this cave is my home? Anyway, go to sleep. She's like, why would I make the bed go somewhere else? That would be wild. I'm like, what is it? Bed knobs and
broomsticks. You gotta like turn it like a quarter turn or like 3 1/4 turns and like tap. I was obsessed with that movie when I was a kid. I need to watch it again. I bet you it holds up. I've heard it holds up pretty well.
I've only seen it one time, like, and as an adult, because people were like, this movie is amazing. I might have watched it with you.
I don't think so.
Because I watched it like in college, like in that apartment.
Maybe. I guess it makes sense that even like that was probably the last time I watched it was in college. Maybe.
Anyway, it's very bed knobs and broomsticks.
Yeah. Love it. When's Angela Lansbury showing up?
Yeah, that's next.
And like all the armor coming to life.
The swans are Angela Lansbury. No. That's why their singing is so beautiful.
Oh.
Anyway, so she's like, all right, I'm going to put you to sleep now. So she had the swans sing. They sang. He went to sleep. She laid down on her silver bed and slept. And the swan slept, girls, curled herself up in the corner, and she actually slept also. So in the morning, the mermaid didn't wake the prince because she'd promised him that she would let him sleep till evening. And so she went out of the cave. Swans followed her, but the girl put her fingers in her mouth and whistled for them to come back. And then obviously sing my swans, sing that the king's son may awake. Swan sang, prince woke up, and then the girl got onto the golden bed beside the prince and was like, run, run, my little bed, run whither I will. And at once the bed moved out of the cave and over the rocks to the sea, and across the sea it carried them straight and swiftly, like any good little ship. And the prince shouted, we're saved. And the girl's like, I don't know about that. Look back. And the prince looked back, and all around the island, the sea was starting to boil and foam because the mermaid had returned to the cave to get ready for her wedding. And when she saw that the prince was gone and the bed was gone, she was like, what the crap? So she's like rushing around the island looking like everywhere. And she yells, bed, bed, my little bed, tell me where you've gone. And their bed, because it could do no other thing but listen, answered from across the water, I'm here, I'm running away swiftly. So the mermaid wrapped herself in a huge wave. Love this goddess energy. And the wave rose up green and roaring, and it rushed over the sea to where the bed was. And the girl saw that the wave was coming, and so she cried out, oh, friend whale, you helped me once, help me again. And the whale, I love it, rose in wrath and rushed to meet the mermaid. I don't know why this whale felt such like a kinship to this lady, but I guess it's good that she did. So the whale like rose up and like went after this mermaid, seized her by the hair. Wig snatch. No.
That's the kind of fight it's going to be.
Anyway, so they like were fighting and lashing. The whole ocean was roiling with fury. So winds were howling, waves were lapping, the bed started spinning around and around, which I'm like, oh my gosh, this is cinematic. The prince and the girl were clinging to the head of the bed, and the prince was crying out, we're sinking, oh, that this bed could fly. And the girl said, who knows, perhaps it can. And she yelled out, fly, fly, my little bed, fly whither I will. And at once the bed rose up into the air and sped swiftly above the rage of the sea. And so when the mermaid saw that the bed was flying, she knew she had been beaten because she could not fly, and it was no use trying. So she ceased to fight the whale. And so the whale gave her one last shake and let her go. I'm like imagining it still like holding her like by the head or whatever, or like the hair. Anyway, so she swam back to her lonely cave to cry. Sad day. The waves calmed down. The wind stopped howling. The sea went back to stillness and calm. And it said that it looked like a crystal mirror. And over that crystal mirror, the little bed went flying till it brought the prince and the girl safe to shore. So when they landed, the girl said, "Fly, fly, my little bed, fly whither you will." And the bed flew back to the mermaid. So at least she still has her stuff. Nobody and she can go hunting for dudes the next day.
Yeah.
I mean,
for sure.
It's fine.
And now it's like she doesn't have this guy anymore. So she's like, she doesn't have to find one as good looking as him. Just like, the next best one that comes along, she can kidnap and
take to her little dungeon.
Yeah. And until, he develops Stockholm syndrome and agrees to marry her. She'll be a little more careful too. She's like, I'm not telling people what that bed says again. They ask, I'm going to say, oh, it says, wash with light colors, then tumble dry on warm, It's just the instructions, the care instructions for the sheets. Mind your business.
Mind your business. Why are you asking? Anyway, they get back to shore and the girl like turns to the prince, is like, "Well, bye, prince. Say hi to your dad for me. Tell him I don't ask for half the kingdom. I just need a small farm where my parents can live for the rest of their life." And the prince was like, "Wait, that's all you're going to ask? But you saved my life. You should come with me to my father's court." And she's like, why? You're a prince. I'm a poor girl. I don't need to go all the way with you to the castle.
To the castle.
What?
Innuendo. Go all the way with you.
Oh.
If you know what I mean. This episode's appropriate for children.
We tried. Anyway, so he said, "If you leave me now, I'm going to be poorer than the poorest that you ever were. Because I am richer than the richest I ever was when I have you with me."
Oh, man. What a line. What a line.
I know. Oh, my gosh.
Do you mean it, or is that just
Yeah,
the food
no,
talking?
I know. Because I'm like, now I wonder. Because again, like, it wasn't, the food situation, like, wasn't clear. It seemed like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he's like, "I love you. Do you think that you could come to love me?" And she was like, I can love you. And I do love you. And he was like, "Okay, then give me your hand and we can go together to the king." So hand in hand, they set off and came to the king's court. And the king, lying in his sick bed, he saw the prince and he sprang from his bed, just like
Grandpa Charlie. You got a golden ticket. Oh, wait, no, it's your Grandpa Charlie. Is that
I think
Grandpa
so, because
Charlie?
I think Charlie was named after
Grandpa Joe. Grandpa Joe. I knew it wasn't
he
Charlie.
jumped out of the bed like so many Grandpa Joes.
He was named after the other grandpa who didn't jump out of the bed.
Anyway, so the prince told him all about the girl saving him, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Exactly like I said, half my kingdom, or I'm so excited, have all of it." And the girl was like,
So I'm dying
who
anyway.
cares?
Who
Who gives
cares?
a crap? But the girl was like, no, it's fine. I don't want all of your kingdom. I don't even want half. I only want the prince and comfort for my parents. And the prince she got, for they were married the next day. Her parents were fetched for the wedding, and after the wedding, the king gave them a pretty little house near the palace where they could live at comfort close to their daughter. And so for the prince and the girl, they were so happy that no one has ever been happier. And happy they remained ever after. I'm like, ooh.
Love it. I like that story a lot.
It was so good.
So good.
The mermaid in the story, a villain.
Yeah, love that. That was really cool.
There's so many parts with her where I'm just like, glorious. Like when she's just like, "I'm so mad. The waves will listen to me." I'm like, oh, yes, girl, get it.
I loved Mermaid as a villain. That was awesome. I loved, once again, just the cinematic nature of it. I was seeing a movie in my mind, like, this is right before being adapted into film. Loved, and I typically love the girl goes on a quest to save the prince, which, it's not as often. That is not as often the dynamic.
Yeah, and even like her personality where she was very much like, I am not greedy. I just want a better life for my sweet parents.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I want. Like, that's my entire
sure.
motivation.
Yeah, had like very good, pure intentions.
Even when she was like, oh, this guy's hot, at no point was she like, oh, I'm going to take advantage of the situation, like the power dynamic of like, I'm going to save him, but I'm only going to do that if he like promises to marry me. No, none of that. It's very much like, you know what? I know my place. Like, I know we come from different like worlds or whatever. He's probably not interested in me. That's totally fine. I'm going to save him regardless because I just want my own little corner in my own little chair. Which I'm like, no, that's perfect. We're big fans of like Lord of the Rings and like Rosie Cotton.
Yeah.
Like she just wanted, that's her ambitions were just like Rosie Cotton ambitions, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Living the Samwise Rosie life. But that's not what you got. I mean, this Rosie, obviously. But And again, the aggressive waterfowl.
Yes.
That are potentially magic, most likely just very well trained. 2 magic beds made of silver and gold, bed knobs and broomsticks-esque, as you had said. There was a lot to like about this story.
I almost felt like there were 2 beds for like the same reason as like 1950s television, where they were like, they can't be sleeping in the same bed. That would be risque, wouldn't it? And I'm like, no, this woman's like, she's kidnapped this man, captured him. She's putting him magically to sleep, like roofing him.
Yeah, but she would never.
But she would never, not in the same bed.
No.
So that's good.
And I do love how she was like unashamedly like, oh, I've just been up there every day trying to find someone that will love me back in case this doesn't work out.
Like, what do you do all day? She's like, obviously trolling for men.
What do you think? I was disappointed. And I think I have like a little bit of a, like, unintentional like reaction, like to swing the other way of like, oh, they're going to fall in love. It's like, why do they have to fall in love? Like, because I did like that that wasn't what her motivation was, which makes it kind of better that she like kind of accidentally finds love. And it's like you said too, she didn't force the guy to fall in love with her. She didn't take advantage of the fact that he might've been magically.
I know. I'm like, were both of them magically influenced to love each other? Hard to tell.
But if that were the case too, like I can see that as like you brought up like a really beautiful metaphor for it in when you were telling the story, like when you were just kind of talking, you kind of said it, you probably didn't even realize you said it pretty half-handed, but like how it was the thing that like knit them together in love or whatever. It wasn't knit, you said something better. And it's kind of like, it could be like this experience of like going through
trauma bonding. No.
Kind of like crazy. Not trauma bonding is not the greatest thing, but like just going through this experience together, like bringing you close together. Not trauma bonding, but it's like, maybe is it not trauma bonding, or am I just
you're like, no, not trauma bonding, and then you're like, but they were united through this shared traumatic event, and you're like, wait, maybe it is trauma bonding, maybe, but also it was like a situation where they would never have met in any other kind of like course of events, and he, like she had these good intentions. She was like a good person. She was smart. She was like quick-witted. Like there were things where he was like, he never would have met her otherwise. And so he was seeing her for who she was in that moment instead of like who her status was.
Yeah, exactly. It gave him the opportunity to see her like best, strongest qualities that he would not have seen, as far as like being like, what's the word I'm looking for? Relentless is kind of what I say. As like just the lengths that she went to try to find him in the first place, and then going like underground, like not giving up, being, like you said, smart, witty, figuring things out, it was great. Anyway, I liked it. So I was like disappointed. I was like, oh, they're gonna fall in love. But then I was like, I ended up, kind of liking it.
At the end, you shipped them together. Hilarious. Yeah. Shipped. Pun intended. Just kidding. Earlier, I think I accidentally did do a pun where I was like, she's trolling for men. Like a trolling ship that was like getting fish. Yeah, I was.
Everything that we say comes from sailing. Every figure of speech, even the ones that you don't think come from sailing, guess what? From sailing. Trolling for men, sailing.
Because it's like military ones, sports metaphors, and sailing. That's like the majority of like the idioms. There's some like farming, ranching ones.
All right. Speaking of sailors, I would like to tell you the story of a little wannabe sailor called Sven. And the individual that he meets named Lily.
Adorable.
There was once a little lad called Sven. and he lived by the sea. And because he lived by the sea, one day he decided to take his father's boat, the wannabe sailor that he was, and went fishing all by himself. Nobody knew that he was gone. But the wind blew, the waves rose high, and it turned his boat upside down, turned his boat flipped upside down. I can't remember the next
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air,
Prince of Bel-Air lyrics, yeah. And then Sven was struggling in the water and almost drowned. So yeah, but flip turned upside down, capsized is what they'd call it on the seven seas. And Sven is there like struggling to survive in the water. He is able to catch hold of the boat, the upside down boat, and is like holding onto the keel and like trying to like use all of his weight to flip it over. And I can tell you, as a Boy Scout, where we had to like purposely capsize canoes and sailboats and all sorts of crap and like try to right them, so hard, like impossibly hard. Like you can do it when you have like 8 scouts to flip this tiny little sailboat back over. But he was just one little scout and could not do it.
Oh, one little scout.
So he climbed up on top of the boat, grabbed onto that upturned heel, and he was hanging on there as the waves were like bashing him about. And the boat slowly drifted and drifted and drifted until he completely lost sight of land. And this is when Sven panicked. "Oh no," he cried. "What shall I do? What shall I do?" And just at that moment, up swam a whale and said, "Little boy, why are you crying?" And the Sven said, "Oh, I'm lost. I can't find the way home." And the whale's like, "I could tell you the way home. Come on, sit on my back." And Sven is like, "I can't. I won't. I'm afraid. I've never seen a talking whale before. This is freaking me out, man."
I love that we've had 2 stories with the whale and that it's like 2 completely different reactions to the whale, where the girl's like, "Why are you laughing at me, you punk?" And he's like, "Come on, I'll take you where you need to go." And this whale's like, "I'll save you." And he's like, "No, you won't." Yeah.
"I'm scared. You just want to trick me and eat me." That's what I'm thinking. He was thinking,
like
I would
so
think
many
that.
Jonahs.
Man, I'm afraid even when I see those like videos of people in the water with like, I don't know, like blue whales, like, or whales that are can't eat people. I'm like, I would not be there. I believe that whales are like friendly and nice and like they don't want to harm us, but like also they could just accidentally bump me with their tail as they're swimming by and like my neck is broken and I'm dead. You know what I mean? Like that could, like, it's not even trying, but it could just seriously injure because it's just such a gigantic creature. So Sven had it right. He was right to be afraid. That girl should have been afraid that the whale was laughing at her. You know what I mean? It's like, he's laughing. What's he going to do?
Yeah. And not been like, "Oh yeah, let me hop out there."
Yeah. Don't antagonize it. But anyway, Sven, choice ends up getting made for him because a huge wave comes along, poof, bashes him off of the boat's keel. And then he's like, okay, if it's between the whale or drowning, I choose the whale. So he climbs on the whale's back and the whale swam off swiftly, which it does say.
Yeah.
Swiftly. It says it twice, which I like. But he didn't go to Sven's home because the whale is a liar. I don't think the whale is a liar. I think the kid said, "I don't know the road home." And the whale's like, "I know the road home. Home is a relative thing, you know." He's like, "Oh, I know how to get home." And so the whale's going to his home and he didn't even think like, "Oh, Sven's home is not my home." So next thing you know, the whale's taking Sven off to his home, the whale's home under the sea. And this home was a big domed stone house. And the walls were made of red granite and steps of yellow granite, which I can't really picture, but I would love to see that illustration. And in that house, Sven saw the whale's little daughter, whose name was Lily. And she was a beautiful little mermaid.
A little mermaid.
Not a whale. This is not a marine biology podcast, but I don't think that's how biology works. I think the daughter of a whale is a whale. I guess, oh, you know what? Adoption.
So like that's the thing.
Mermaid adopted by a whale.
But also, if that whale does think that that's his like literal biological daughter, I would recommend a DNA test. There needs to be, obviously some like Maury Povich under the sea situation.
But she was a beautiful little mermaid, and love that they do describe the mermaid because it is so different in so many different things. Her eyes were like stars. Her hair shone like the sun. Her body was like mother of pearl, and she had a golden tail. A lot of those descriptions aren't actually as helpful as they are poetic. But I mean, it kind of is. Her hair shone like the sun. It's like, okay, it was shiny. Maybe we would think like yellow or like blonde hair, but it's like the sun is white light. So she had white hair. Who knows? Anyway, but she did have a tail. But it's also an interesting, like mother of pearl. That's interesting in a couple ways of like, very nautically themed. And then also, then a tail is very indicative of the fact that it was not, fully human.
And it's like, it's interesting because it's like one of those things to note when you are reading a story about mermaids is to pay close attention to what is described. And so this is a tail.
Because there are some where it seems like they are just humans that just live under the sea.
Because like even, because the last story that like I told, the mermaid, they never described her legs. They said she had scales. They didn't say scales all over her legs, like whatever, or how much like of her skin was scales. Didn't really fully say. And she seemed very much like she would come onto land. The area in that little grotto cave like thing area seemed like land. She was climbing into a bed. It was very like, she's like Calypso in the Odyssey where she's like, oh, I've trapped this man on my island and now like love me. Yeah. And so, like it was like, we're saying the word mermaid, but what kind of mermaid? So this one does have a tail.
Does have a tail. And it also makes sense because this is underwater. And it's one of those things where inexplicably Sven can breathe
and
underwater,
maybe her tail was a whale tail and her mom was a human woman who had
maybe
relations.
No, don't say it.
And you're done.
Okay, so depending on your interpretation of the events that happen with the whale bringing Sven home, in my headcanon, misunderstanding. Home, ambiguous. The whale took Sven to his home. Didn't even think about that their homes would be different. Whale tricking this boy, bringing him home because he's tricking him. Less cute, this next part. But the whale brings the boy down to the mermaid daughter and says, Lily, do you like this boy? So either he's kidnapping this kid or he's like, oh, I found this kid. I want to, set him up with my daughter in like a cute way. To Lily, she's game. Yes, I like him. Let him stay, she says, as if he were a puppy that the whale had found, almost drowning on the keel of an overturned ship. And so the whale, giving credence to my headcanon, asks Sven if he would like to stay.
Nice. Consent is important.
And wait upon Lily. Would you stay and be my daughter's servant? And Sven is like, yes, I'll stay. And so Sven became Lily's servant of his own free will.
Love that.
I mean, did he really have another choice? We need to just keep on with the story.
Moving swiftly on.
And so Lily's like, oh, you agreed to be my servant? What work can you do, Sven? And Sven's like, I can hoe turnips. And she's like, we don't have any turnips. What else can you do? I can steer a boat. Okay. Can you though? But she's like, we don't want boats down here. Which, I mean, maybe because they'd be trying to catch them in their nets, or also because it's not good for the boats to be under the water. We learned that early in the story.
Yeah. And it's a lot harder to steer them underwater.
Yeah. So I've heard. And then, so she's like, oh, we don't have boats. So what other work do you know how to do? And he's like, oh, I can catch fish. And to that, she's like, no. You mustn't do that. We love fish. My father is the king of all the fishes. Okay, never mind. Forget all that. Just comb my hair. And so Sven combed Lily's hair with a dingle hopper, which is way harder than with a brush.
Yeah, it is.
Obviously he didn't do it with a dingle hopper because you don't comb with a dingle hopper. You dingle hop with a dingle hopper.
Obviously.
That's what the ER on dingle hopper. Anyway.
Dingle hopper?
Linguistics.
I barely know her.
That shouldn't have been as funny as it was, but it was. So he combs her hair, and that's all the work that he did, which he got off pretty easy,
Yeah.
He would comb her hair, and then besides that, he and Lily would spend all their time playing, which it did say that he was a little boy, but I'm like, how little? It does annoy me when it's like, I mean, here's also a thing. Even if they were like, oh, he was 8 years old or whatever, it's also relative to what 8-year-olds were doing in that place and time is different than what I think of 8-year-olds doing too. So it's like, oh, but anyway, they're playing around. They're playing. He would comb her hair and then they would play. And they would laugh and they would joke. And then they grew old together. Not super old, but when they grew old enough, they got married. Which, 13? Just headcanon again, at least 18. But that's a little young still for me. But you know,
Yeah.
it's a fairy tale.
It's a fairy tale.
Life's hard under the sea. You know, life expectancy not as long.
I don't know. Whales.
So they get married.
Whales live a long time.
That's true.
And she's only
Humans
half whale.
humans historically don't live very long under the water. Though. So
Fair point. That is a fair point.
anyway, they get married. And they're very happily married, apparently. And one day Sven says, Lily, how come you don't have a looking glass? Even though your face is so nice to look at. And Lily's like, oh, I really want a looking glass. Go get me one. And so Sven's like, oh, you know what? In my parents' house, up on land, they have a looking glass. But I don't know how to get back there. And Lily's like, psh, I know the way. Come get on my back and I'll take you there. Which I'm like, okay, hold up.
They could have taken him back this whole time.
Whale? Did the whale know? Yeah, you could have taken it back any time. Anyway, worked out for the best. So Sven got on Lily's back and she swam with him all the way till they came to a stony shore. And beyond that stony shore, Sven saw the village and the house that he was born in. And so Lily's like, hey, you have to go alone from here on out because I can't walk on your land over there.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to come down here, sit on this rock in the water, and I'll wait for you to come back. But please come back quickly. And Sven's like, okay, yes, I'll come back quickly. And he slid off of Lily's back, waded through the shallow water, and went up to the beach to his parents' house.
I was just going to say, me knowing that this story is Danish, and I've read a lot of Danish mermaid tales before, like in anticipation of like Little Mermaid episodes that we've done, like other things. There are so many of like the Danish stories where it's like the second that the guy gets like back on land, he like forgets, or the woman, they get back on land, they instantly forget all about like the family that they've like left behind. And then the like mer person like dies like of like a tragic broken heart thing. And that's where I thought this story was going to go.
Yeah, we've read a story like that on the podcast before too, and I kind of had a little bit of that. I was like, oh man, or he was like playing the long game, with like marrying her and all that, and he was like, now's my chance to be back, you know, like
make a
escaping
run for it,
escaping the imprisonment of the sea. But no, that's not what happened. He goes to his mother's house and he sees his mother standing by the table by the window making pastry, probably a Danish of some sort. Raspberry Danishes are my favorite. And his mom is like, who are you and what do you want? And he's like, I'm Sven. I've come looking for a looking glass that I can give to my wife. And his mother's like, you are not Sven. Sven drowned 10 years ago. So get out of here. And he's like, Mom, I am Sven. Look at me. Look at my face. And his mother looks for a long time at his face. And then she just shakes her head. She said, my Sven had a brown, funny face, crinkled up with laughter. Your face is smooth and fair and shines like the moon. No, you are not Sven. Get away. He was pretty pale because he'd been living under the water.
Yeah.
It's pretty dark down there.
For years.
Enough years that he was old enough to get married to a mermaid. And Sven, not giving up, he's like, Mother, just give me your looking glass and then I'll go. And she's like, I'll give you nothing. Get out of here. And she threw the rolling pin at him. And just at that moment, Sven's father comes in. He's like, hey, what are you doing here? And who are you? And he's like, I'm Sven. I'm just looking for a looking glass. He told them the story about how he was married to Lily the mermaid, and they did not believe him. They thought he was crazy. Nobody would believe him. And so his father just like, no, get out of here. And he picks up a poker from the fireplace and starts like chasing him out of the house with this poker. And so Sven then goes to his grandmother's house, and his grandmother's sitting by the fire knitting a stocking. And when he goes in there, same old thing. Who are you? What do you want? Granny, I'm Sven. Will you give me your looking glass, please? And she's like, what? No, Sven drowned 10 years ago. You are not Sven. Which, I mean, if I had thought that my beloved family member had died and someone was coming in pretending to be them and say like, no, I'm this person that has died and give me your stuff.
Yeah, give me your stuff. Yeah.
I'd be mad too. I'd be throwing rolling pins and chasing them off with pokers, red hot pokers.
Especially if you thought that like, let's say he was around 8 or 10 years old and you thought that your 8 or 10-year-old had died. It's extremely mean to show up and be like, hey, don't you recognize me? I'm your son. Give me all your stuff.
Yeah. But it was true. But anyway, I understand where they're coming from. And so the granny's like, no, you're not Sven. Sven drowned. Get out of here. And he's like, no, I didn't drown. I just married a mermaid and she has such a beautiful face. She needs a looking glass. That's all I want. And Granny's like, you are lying to me. You won't have my looking glass. I need my looking glass. I'm not so old and ugly yet that I can do without a looking glass. So get out of here. Not only are you insulting me by pretending to be my dead loved one, But you think that I'm too old and ugly to need a looking glass, so get on out.
Like, you don't need it.
And she throws a stocking at him, which of the things that have been thrown or swung at him so far is like pretty, reasonable. Like, ow, a stocking.
Yeah, it's much better than the poker.
Yeah. So then after that, Sven went to his great grandmother's house, and which I was not expecting a great grandmother to make an appearance in the story. I'll tell you that.
I know. Jeez.
And great grandmother is sitting there. She's rocking herself in a rocking chair, twiddling her thumbs and singing to herself. My favorite so far. And so Sven walks in. He's, I don't know. It just seems chill.
Yeah, she's a nice Mama
rocking,
Coco.
Twiddling her thumbs, singing to herself. And so she said, Sven walks in and says, "Good morning, great grandmother." And she's like, "Who are you? Why have you come to visit me?" And he's like, "I'm Sven. I fell into the sea when I was a boy. I married a mermaid. She has such a pretty face, great grandma, but she needs a looking glass." And she's like, "Yeah, you are Sven. Come, give me a kiss. You can have my looking glass. What do I need with it anyway? I'm so old and ugly. What? She didn't say that, but the implication based on the previous interaction with this woman's daughter, the grandmother. Anyway, the looking glass was hanging on the wall, and Sven went to take it down when a female cousin of his came in, and she's like, "Who is this man? What is he doing here?" And great grandmother's like, "It's Sven. He's come here looking for my looking glass." And cousin is pissed, and she's like, "No, he's not Sven. Sven drowned. This is obviously someone trying to take advantage of a senile old lady."
Yeah.
And he's like, "You can't have that looking glass. Grandmother, you promised that to me." And the great grandmother's like, "No, I never did that." And so the cousin's like, "Well, I want it, and I'm getting married next week. And a newly wedded wife needs a looking glass so that she can keep herself tidy and please her husband."
That felt.
What do you think about that, Katrina?
That felt pointed, but also at the same time, he has the exact same.
Yeah.
He's thinking the same thing where he's like, "Oh, I just got married to this beautiful woman. I want her to be able to see how beautiful she is."
Yeah, and I said it pointedly because I was like, "What's your reaction to this piece of advice from this young cousin that she needs to keep herself tidy and please her husband?"
Yeah, obviously, I poo-poo that, but also,
But also, in the context of the story, like you had brought up already, it's like kind of in comparison, like this girl is. I don't know at the time how it would have been considered, but in our day, reading it right now, it's like, okay, that's not like the greatest thing. But then you compare it to what he's wanting it for, which is like, oh, he wants his wife to be happy for herself just so she could know, like you said, how beautiful she is. So she can see her own beautiful self because he loves her face so much. He wants her to see it as well. It's like, that is the higher, more noble desire. And yet the girl cousin runs after him screaming, "Thief, thief, thief." Oh man, yeah, I forgot about this part. Even though it's a major moment in the story, Katrina. She's chasing the cousin. This girl cousin's chasing Sven out of the house, yelling, "Thief, thief, thief." Her fiance comes, her brothers come, and they grab sticks and they run after Sven and they beat him. And they took the looking glass from him, which I'm like, the looking glass didn't get broken in this scuffle that's going on. That's a miracle. And they beat him so bad they left him lying as if dead at the top of the beach. And so Lily sat on the rock under the shallow water this whole time, waiting for Sven to come back. And she waited and waited and waited. And Sven did not come. And she was probably worried that maybe it was going to be the way the other stories went, like we thought it was. And she began to sing and call out, "Come back, Sven, come back, Sven." But still, Sven did not come back. And so Lily lifted her head above the shallow water and she saw Sven lying, maybe dead at the top of the beach.
Aww.
And she started crying out to her father saying, "Father, send me a wave, send me a great wave, Father." And so the whale sends a great wave, and the wave lifted Lily and floated her up the beach to where Sven lay. Lily took Sven in her arms, and the wave carried them back out into the sea. And Sven opened his eyes and said to Lily, he's like, "Oh, I'm greatly hurt, Lily, and they've taken the looking glass away from me."
Aww.
And Lily sparkled with anger,
Ooh.
which I've never heard people sparkling with anger before, but I like it. And she cried out, "Send me huge waves, Father, huge waves to drown this village." Dang, it's escalating.
Girl, she mad. That's what happens when you sparkle with anger.
Yeah, man. The whale sent huge waves.
She's like, "I am become death." Like, oh.
Drowner of villages. And so these waves come and they are huge and they roar up the beach and they're dashing on the houses, tumbling those houses left and right. And everyone in the village are running to the hill that's up behind it. The girl cousin ran away. The girl's sweetheart put down the looking glass and fled. The girl's brothers also dropped their sticks. Sven's mother left her pastry and fled. His father caught up to the grandmother and fled. But in all this, no one thought of the great grandmother. And the walls of great grandmother's house fell down. The roof caved in and the waves lifted her rocking chair. And there she was, rocking on top of the waves in her chair, twiddling her thumbs and singing to herself. And there's like a really great image of that. And like she just looks so happy to be like, oh, here we are. The granny surfing the waves in her rocking chair.
Yeah, I'm like, I love this, like a surfing granny. Like, just she's being like, oh, yeah, living my best life.
Then the whale called the waves, and the waves came back down again, and they set the great grandmother gently down on the beach in her chair. And the looking glass, which the girl's sweetheart had dropped, lay at the granny's feet. So she called out, Sven, your looking glass, come and get your looking glass. But Sven couldn't come because he was too badly beaten by those men with sticks. That Lily again sings out, Father, send us a wave, send us a wave. Father, carry us up to the beach to the great grandmother's feet. And so the whale sent a gentle little wave to carry Lily and Sven up to the feet of the great grandmother. And great grandmother, as she does, sitting there, rocking, twiddling her thumbs. And she said, oh, give me a kiss, my pretty one, you who are Sven's wife. Take the looking glass. And here in my pocket is some ointment to rub Sven's hurt away. Oh.
Nice.
And so Lily kissed the great grandmother, took the looking glass and the ointment, and then the wave carried Lily and Sven back into the sea. And Lily swam home, holding Sven, and the sea was quiet. And the people in the village came down from the hill and began to build their houses once again.
I love the mental image of them like coming out, like looking around, looking, and like down on the beach is just this granny, like in her like rocking chair, just on the beach. Too,
great grandmother watched them as she rocked in her chair and twiddled her thumbs. And she says to these people, you had been wiser if you had been kinder. Seems like a message to me. And meanwhile, down under the sea in the domed house, Lily rubbed Sven's injuries with the great grandmother's ointment, and he got better, grew strong again, and just like he did when he was a little boy, combed Lily's hair and implored her to look in the looking glass and see what a nice, beautiful face you have. And so Lily looked in the glass and said, yes, I do have a nice face, my Sven. And Sven combed Lily's hair every day, and every day she looked in the glass and smiled. They lived happily. And there in their domed house under the sea, so people say, they are living still.
Oh.
The end.
The end.
Another delightful story. I love that one too.
Yeah. It's one of those things too where it's like when we're looking at are the mermaids nice? Are the mermaids kindly in this like story? And it's like, well, she loved who she loved. And then when somebody hurt her love, she was, ready to go hard against humans. So it's like this love-hate thing with humans where they're like, they love them, they're attracted to them, they want them. Mm-hmm. But then on the flip side too, they're like, but you aren't nice, you treat people badly, you treat fish badly, you treat me and my kind badly, so like we hate you. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, it's like, are they good? Are they bad? It's a mixed bag in the stories. Mm-hmm. So now, quickly, because this last one is shorter, but
the story I've been waiting for.
So this one, I think there's a couple things that are interesting about it. One, this is an Irish tale. It's called The Enchanted Lake. That's the other thing that's interesting about it, is that it's a lake.
Fresh water. Well, not necessarily fresh water, but yeah, it's a lake.
But it's a lake.
The others were the sea.
And yeah, it feels different. In past episodes, we've talked about like in different places, like in Russia, Scandinavia, there are small watered creatures like Ruselki, which are like these Russian water ones, because it's like in the watery areas are more ephemeral, where you'll have obviously, like a bunch of snow in the wintertime, because of it being so high up, it's Russia. So you have like all this snow, and then when it thaws, that water then is kind of in these like pools. And so you have like these creatures that live in these pools until eventually in the summertime, it, pretty much like evaporates away and then it's gone. And so there are like these creatures that like live in pools. And so there are also mermaids that can be living in enchanted lakes, which also kind of recalls you to like stories like King Arthur, where there's maidens living in enchanted lakes. But also the thing I like about this story so much is I feel like the Irishness of this story makes it very hilarious, tongue-in-cheek kind of a story. So, the Enchanted Lake. Well,
I'm excited.
there was a lake with a bad name because, like, a bad reputation is what they mean by a bad lake, because many a man had gone to swim in it. The water somehow seemed to coax people towards it, call them in, draw them nearer. Because, like most lakes, you're drawn to cool, clear water on hot summer days. But a lot of young fellows who were confident in their swimming had gone into this lake and never returned. They vanished. So people started to, pass the word around, like, no one should go in that lake. Don't go in that lake. Stay away from that lake. Don't swim in it anymore. It's bad. Now, there was a young farmer, and his name was Rory Keating, and he was going to get married. And so he went into town to buy a wedding ring for his bonny lass, his lady companion. So on his way, both coming and going, he was going to be, passing by this lake. So he passed it on his way out. When he got into town, he saw some of his friends there, and they were like, oh, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I came out here to buy a wedding ring for the woman that I've been seeing. I'm going to ask her to marry me. It's going to be a wedding. It's very exciting. And his friends were like, oh, wow, like that sounds exciting. We should go celebrate. We should do something. Let's all go back together. So after getting this ring, they all decided that they were all going to go back with each other. So they're walking back home, all in good spirits, laughing and talking. And Rory was in, it says, wild spirits, and his comrades not much less so. So I'm like, I don't know how much partying they were doing. I'm just imagining these frat guys, basically, oh yeah, everything's going great. And it said they got Larkin as they were walking along. And so just goofing around. But Rory kept taking the ring out of his pocket to look at it, give it a little twirl against the sun. Every now and then also giving it kind of a little toss, like up in the air and catching it. He wanted to just keep looking at it. So he did this once too often as they were coming by the lake, and he threw the ring up into the air. It said the ring gave a jump and then fell into the water. And it gave a little twinkle as it struck the water and then vanished.
Oh, no.
And immediately, for whatever reason, I had one ring, like Lord of the Rings, in my mind of Gollum or whatever, going out down into the water. Because, it's it hit the water and then vanished. And this story says, because of course it did. It sank like anything would sink in a lake. Mm-hmm. He could be sure that it sank to the bottom if that lake had any bottom. Ominous. But either way, ring disappeared. It was gone. And Rory was like, oh my gosh, so upset. This was the ring that he was going to ask his girl to marry him with. And what is he going to do now? And he thought for a second, I need to jump into this lake after this thing. I need to go in and get it. And then he was like, well, no, because every guy who's ever gone into this lake and dove under the surface has never been seen again. So no, I'm not going to jump in, because it said, because if that happened to him, what would Peggy do? I'm like, good. I'm glad that this woman gets a name.
Yeah. And I love that it's Peggy.
Peggy. She would fade away and die of grief. It's she'd probably get over it. Just kidding. I'm sure she cares very deeply about this Rory dude. Anyway, so he's like, no, I can't jump in because yes, I don't have the ring, but if I was dead, that'd be worse. I don't know what to do. So what did he do? He turns to the other guys that he's hanging out with, and he says to them, hey, you guys don't have any girlfriends. You don't have any fiancés. You don't have any wives. Nobody would miss you. I'll give 5 guineas to the man who will dive in and bring up the ring. And all of the guys were like, we're not stupid. Why would I risk my life for 5 guineas to get you your ring? No, I'm not going to do that. That's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So Rory was like, oh, I don't know what to do. These guys won't help me out. I don't want to risk it. What do I do? So down the lane comes this guy named Paudine. So Paudine was known in the town as not being very bright. At least that's what everybody would say about him. So Paudine walks up and he's like, what's going on? Why are you guys all crowded around the lake? So they told him everything. And he was like, really? Are you honestly going to give 5 guineas to the guy that jumps in and gets the ring? And Rory's like, yes, I absolutely will. If you come back up with the ring, I swear I have 5 guineas. Here they are right now. So he pulled them out to show him like, yeah, no, I have them. Like, and I swear I will give them to you. Like, if you bring me the ring back. And Paudine was like, oh, okay. Yeah, then I'll do it. That seems like what I want to do. And into the lake he dived, just as he was, jacket, boots, and all. I'm like, wow, all right, that's a way. So he dove down, down, down till his lungs felt like they were bursting, but there didn't seem to be any bottom to the lake. And just as he was thinking, oh man, I'm going to have to turn around and go back up. Like, I don't have much air like left in me. All of a sudden, the water parted from around him. And there he was, standing on dry ground. And there was bright blue sky over his head, and there was a broad path under his feet. So instantly I was thinking of Frau Holly and the Water Nixie, by both of those found in like the Brothers Grimm collection, where there is this thing of like going down into a well where theoretically there's like water at the bottom, but then no, they pop out in this place, but it seems like it's above ground. So it's like this weird like realm, alternate dimension thing that he like fell into. Anyway, so standing on dry ground, there's blue sky over his head, path under his feet. So he just starts walking along that path until he comes to a gate. He walks through the gate and he's like, wow, this is like really beautiful grounds. There's an elegant avenue, manicured gardens. Like, he's looking around because he's like, man, this is a massive pleasure garden like that royals, would have. So he's like looking around and he's seeing that there's like a bunch of men down there that are just like working in these fields. And Paudine like gets closer and he's like looking at these gardeners and he starts seeing some familiar faces of guys that had disappeared from their town that they had thought had drowned in this lake. And he was like, oh my gosh, like these guys, they've been down here so long. So Paudine, he's walking along and he's talking to them. And he's like, hey, hello, Jack O'Toole. Pleasure. I haven't seen you in a while. Ned Flanagan. Hey, how's it going? Billy O'Dell, or, just whatever. I'm like, my brain's like Conan O'Brien. Like,
could be.
Like, what are some Irish names? But anyway, as he's like shouting out to them, top of the morning to ye, I'm like, okay. Now it's offensive. Anyway, but as he's shouting out to them, none of them are looking up at him, saying hi to him. They're just working hard. They're planting, digging, weeding. They're shoveling gravel like onto like the paths. And the whole time that they're working, they're singing this little song. Fair her face and white her skin, have you courage her to win, and her wealth it far outshines Afric's gold and silver mines. She exceeds all heart can wish, neither rude nor tigerish, but sweet as roses in a bower, and graceful as the lily flower. So hearing them singing this song, Paudine, he starts hurrying his steps because he's like, oh, who is this beautiful maiden that they're all singing about? And I know, Geoff, right now you're picturing the picture that I sent you, as you should. So he's thinking of this like beautiful maiden, and he's just like, oh my gosh, who are they? This must be whose like grounds these are, and whose like home like we're at. And she sounds exquisite. And so he comes up to this like grand house and this grand flight of steps that go up to the front door, and seeing the door was already open, he decided that he was going to be bold and go right in. So he walks in and he shouts, anyone home? And it says, and would you believe it? Out from the kitchen came flippin' and flapping the largest and ugliest mermaid that ever a man saw. She had pig's eyes and wolf's teeth and a great mouth that grinned from ear to ear. Green, white hair hung from her head like lichen on an old tree. But she was decked out, covered in golden chains and bracelets. And That was all she was wearing.
Oh.
And so it's seriously flipping and flapping. She was like hopping like on like a tail, which I'm like, why are you on a land? Like, why would you choose? I don't understand the mechanics of this choice. It's fine. It's a magical realm. So anyway, so she's like, good morning, Padine. And he's looking at her and he's like, good morning, ma'am. Well, maybe it's evening after all. It was kind of later in the day. I can't really tell down here. She's like, oh, and what brought you here to my humble abode? Wasn't it for love of me that you came? Like, girl, stop.
Love the confidence.
For sure. And it was like the giggle she let out of her when she said that shook and wrinkled her fat cheeks so that they made Padine think of boiling gruel.
Oh gosh.
Oh gosh. And so like the picture of this lady is like what I sent to Geoff, because it seriously is like all of those things where she's got like a big old hefty fishtail. The woman is built like a goldfish.
Yeah.
Like that's like the woman is built like a goldfish. And so, but like a mermaid, they've depicted her like waist down is fish parts, but then from top up, it's lady bits. And all she's wearing are these like massive necklaces that are like covering strategically parts of her. And like seriously, wolf tusks, green licheny hair coming down. And, Padine is just standing in front of her like, ooh.
Hands in his pockets.
Yeah, just like trying to be as polite as possible. Without, because like obviously if that had hopped out at me, I probably would have screamed first, been polite second, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, those teeth look like they're meant for eating and ripping flesh from the bone.
Yeah, absolutely. So he says, well, ma'am, first and foremost, I came because I was looking for Rory Keating's gold ring. It fell into this lake and he needs it back. And she was like, oh, I have that for you in my hand. And she gave it to him, which I'm like, thankfully, promptly hand it to him. So he's like, thank you, ma'am. So what I love. So there's like a saying, like a goodbye where they're like, may your shadow never grow less. Meaning like, may you never face hungry years. Like, may you never, like have suffering years.
Yeah.
So he says, I needn't say, may your shadow never grow less, for it's a powerful one enough already.
That's like, I don't know. So one side of TikTok, I also get down deep into is Irish TikTok for some reason. And that sounds like a very like Irish insult.
Yeah.
It's like a compliment and insult at the same time.
Yeah. Like I am going to comment on this, but I'm going to try to frame it as positively as possible so that I don't upset you.
But also, I don't know. I mean, the other thing, this is a departure a little from the story, I guess, but like with those, like the Irish, like they just will make fun of you for anything. Like apparently they just are just constantly ragging on each other. Like, and it seems to be good naturedly, but like, like you can't wear like a bright colored hat or else they'll make fun of you until you take it off.
Yeah, they'll just call you canary boy, highlighter head, until you stop.
Yeah. So it's like, but it's a similar sort of a thing. Just being like, you've got such a great big shadow. Like saying it in a positive way, but also, I don't know, the way I'm picturing it with the stuff that I've seen is like still very much like, but I'm giving you a good natured, insult at the moment, which may not be how it really is, but within the story, but that's what's coming.
I mean, because I'm like, when I'm reading it, I like to imagine the person who's telling the story who's like, I know that you've seen sexy mermaids. And I'm going to turn that trope on its head by telling you this story. Because instead of it being this like, oh, clearly alluring woman who drags these boys like down into like the depths, it's like, no, it's not that.
Yeah. And more likely to the story too, with this sharp-toothed woman.
Yes.
that is physically imposing, you probably would be wanting to keep it polite so that they didn't use those sharp teeth to rip the flesh from your bones.
It's good to be polite.
Yep.
So yeah, he's like, I wish you all the good in the world. And if you will be so kind, ma'am, I was wondering, how do I get back up to Rory to return his ring? Do I just come back the way I came? And she was like, oh, no, I thought you had come to marry me. And he was like, oh, well, now don't go and upset yourself, my darling. But I'm going to need you to wait here until I come back because I'm to be paid for this errand. So I must return the ring or else they'll wonder, what's keeping me so long down here. And she was like, oh, never mind about the money that they owe you, because if you marry me, you shall live in this house forever and want for nothing. And he was like, oh, but I mean, you have so many husbands down here already, ma'am. And the whole time they're having the conversation, he's just like edging back to the door, and it says, and she's flapping after him. Which I'm like, makes it slightly less like imposing. And she said, well, yes, I've had a good few offers in my time, but they don't please me the way that you do. I've just have them taking care of my grounds around my castle and handling that. I just have them tending my garden outside. You probably saw some of them, like as you were coming in. And he's like, yeah, I saw one or two. And they were all singing your praises because they care for you so much. And she's like, oh, they just know that if they weren't singing my praises, I wouldn't feed them any supper. Looks such as mine must be flattered, I was like, wow. And he's like, you're right about that, ma'am. She's like, why do you keep calling me ma'am? I thought I was your darling. And so he was like, you are my darling. You're so beautiful, so gracious, so poised, so lovely. And the whole way he's just like backing himself down the avenue. And she's puffing and flapping along after him. So he starts to hear just like the gardener's like song about her getting louder and louder in his ears because they had started singing it louder when they saw her coming. And so quickly, Paudine kind of backed himself back to like the gate that he had come in. And so he shut it after him. And there suddenly was water all around him again. And so he just kicked up and tried to get to the surface. And he was looking around the whole time trying to see if that mermaid was following him. It said, but praise be, there wasn't a sight of her. Indeed, what with her body weighed down by all the bracelets and chains, which I'm like, that was gracious of them. Bracelets and chains, she was fair-winded by the time she had followed him as far as the gate. So all she could do was stand at the gate and shriek after him, come back, my Paudine, come back quickly. So he just swam and swam and swam and swam until he broke the surface of the water. And Rory Keating and all the rest of those guys were shocked to see him shoot out of the water because they had seen him go down and not come back up. And we're pretty sure that they were like, okay, we sent that guy to his death. Oh no, like this is pretty bad. How are we going to break it to his family that like we killed this guy? So they see him, swimming for his life across, and they helped like pull him out of the water. And as they're pulling him out of the water, Paudine, flopped ashore and was like, here, I think this is your ring, and hands him the ring. And I've earned my 5 guineas, if ever a man did. For she that's down below is worse than a nightmare. And so, of course, Paudine got his 5 guineas, and those men all looked on him with a little more respect after that. And every now and then he would think to himself, maybe I should go back down there, because I did promise her I'd come back. But once he had thought that, he would think twice, and then remember that mermaid had plenty of other young men to choose from if she really wanted to marry.
That's true.
Absolutely delightful tale. Love that. Oh.
Amazing. Did not disappoint. Loved her flapping after him constantly. And huffing and flapping after him as he's backing up slowly.
It's just like one of the most humorous images ever is like this like woman who like, yes, she is like horrifying, terrifying looking, but also because she's a sea creature on land, she's just like not a threat at all. Like it's more sad than anything else.
Yeah.
But also it just like makes me wonder like, why haven't those guys left?
Yeah.
They're not out there being supervised.
Katrina, what did she say? What was her threat against them? That she wouldn't feed them supper. They had eaten of her food in this otherworldly realm, and they fell under her spell. Fell in love with her for real, perhaps? I don't know about that part, but I mean, it's like either interpretation of like compared to the other story, which there's not necessarily much of a reason why there's not much of a reason why they wouldn't, but there's not a super strong reason why they would be.
Yeah.
The same like magical love sort of a thing. But there is, and in Irish fairy tales, I know, one of the few things I know.
Oh, that's true.
That whole thing of like eating the food of the fae, that's something that in Irish fairy tales appears from time to time, you might say. I think that's what it is. That makes sense to me. But who knows?
So hopefully we have broken the curse of Mer-MAY by offering you these stories 3. Hopefully they were extremely enjoyable. They were enjoyable to read. They were enjoyable to retell.
I had a great time.
I hope everybody enjoys listening to them.
Have a very merry Mer-MAY, Mer-June, and Mer-July.
Thank you for listening to The Fairy Tellers. If you enjoy what we're doing, please leave us a review or share us with your friends. For access to exclusive bonus content, consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/thefairytellers. Special thanks to Andy Forey for our music and to Clarice Inch for our artwork. And of course, a big thank you to all our patrons. Without all of you, this show wouldn't be possible.
Good stories pay little attention to cultural or linguistic frontiers. The student of story collections find themselves adrift on an ocean of stories, an ocean which is boundless, deep, and ceaseless in motion. Robert Irwin.
I had a reverse ugly duckling scenario happen.
You realize that you peaked in high school and now you're... Oh, sorry.
No. Well, I mean, yes, but that was